Um, Good evening, everyone. Tonight's program is about field days in the past, and officially this year's field day is in the past. So first, we're going to have Gary come up and talk about how we did. He's going to go over all the stats and explain things. And then we're going to have Nate talking about what we did well, what we could do better next year, et cetera, et cetera. He was the recipient of all the emails that you sent to me about how you all felt about field day. So with that, Gary, it's all yours.
Okay, here we are, field day. Gary XT, I found a place to put your picture. Gary took some awesome pictures at field day, and I thought I'd put it right at the front of the report. So, we scored a lot of bonus points this year. We got bonus points for using a generator, for having media publicity. There was actually an article about Ozaki, and they interviewed Jinan, and there was an article in the Ozaki Press. A reporter, photographer from the Ozaki Press actually came to field day. This is a first in many years, on Sunday, and took pictures. And I haven't seen someone saying they saw an article after field day about, but he was there. And like last year, this year we sent out 50 postcards targeted to hams that have gotten licensed in the last 11 months. And we know of a number of them who came to our field day. We also get bonus points for setting up in a public place. I think you've all seen Lazy Days here. These, by the way, okay, you caught that. Good. Only 2 people in the room caught that one. Yeah. These pictures and you're looking at are actually what are called bonus proofs, and they get submitted to the ARRL with our report to prove each of these bonus points. So that's what all this is about. So we set up at Pleasant Valley, and we had a public information booth, and 53 people signed our guest visitor log, which is a lot, I think. And we had an information table and hand flyers and information about ham radio and etc. and what we do. We sent official message. Paul, thank you very much. PM, I think he's here. Over there, yep. Sent an official radiogram to our section manager. That's on the left. And on the right is the actual reply from the section manager to prove we sent it and he got it. He said, I hope you're having a fun and successful field day. Paul also sent out 13 messages to area field day groups around, from here to Green Bay to Timbuktu. So we only need 10. We sent 13, so that's another 100 points of bonus. We completed satellite QSO. Did it again. We made 30 contacts using alternate power. Alternate power, in this case, a battery charged by solar cells. 30 Qs, only need 10, got 30. We copied the field day message. Blah, 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 happy field day, etc. There it is. And we did an educational bonus. I mean, I talked to many people about satellite stuff, and people led people around on tours, and a lot of talking about ham radio, so I count that education. We had 2 served agencies come to field day. Here's Deputy Thompson, Ozaki County Sheriff's Department. And on the bottom in the middle is Tom Kaya, who is actually the Southeastern Wisconsin Emergency Management Team Leader. So they both count. What we did not get this year is an elected official. Couldn't find one. They're all hiding these days. For I won't go down that road. We also had a go to station. Thanks, Mike. MEY. The bottom right picture. I don't think he's making go to queues. I think he's just testing out the station before field day started. But we also had many social media posts, etc. These are from Facebook and Instagram. And we had a safety officer who checked all these boxes and said, yeah, we're being safe. And we had lots of water and ice available, and nobody had a horrific accident. So these are the cues. It's getting a little small on that screen up there, but I'll just read the highlights. CW tent, 1,003 cues. Digital, in other words, 6 meters, had a gangbuster year with 73 WSJTX contacts. 73. Phone, 80, 40, 20, and 15 meter phone for a total of 1,040 cues. So when you add that up, and then we also had 72 cues in GOTA, which is, I think, a pretty big number for GOTA this year. But anyway, and we had a GOTA coach. That's another 100-point bonus. Excuse me. So we transfer all those numbers for page 2. So 103 CW queues times 2 is 206. Digital contacts times 2, 146. And then a power multiplier, everybody was under 100 watts. So the total claimed QSO score is 6,384 plus 1,810 bonus points. So is that a lot or is that a little? Well, here's the last field day since 2001. So last year we were 84.80. So this year with the bonus points we're 81.94. Last year we were 84.87. Year before we were 93.12. Before that 83. Before that 72. So we're in the ballpark. We're a little less than the last 2 years. But I think most people were wandering around field day saying, bands are down, blah, 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 etc. So that's about it from me.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on here, guys. I think we had a pretty successful field day. I'm looking at, I got another screen up here with the emails of good, bad, and the ugly of everything that's going on. And just in general, I think, we had a pretty good field day. People talked about, the setup went pretty well. We've really gotten this down very well with the antennas on the trailers, the tower trailers, everything in the white trailer. So, everything's organized. So it's not a very like chaotic scene on the setup there. One thing that, was talked about was, it was a really hot, Friday was hot even, but Sunday was really a hot day. And after a long weekend of everything going on, doing the teardown was kind of rough from that standpoint there. One thing we'd love out of the club membership, even if you're not coming out and operating with us, every available person helps on a Sunday because it ends up being a long day. I think by the time everything was done there, it was like just before 5 o'clock. I don't know, maybe someone else can interject if I'm wrong on that time, but I know by then it was I got home, took a shower, and I just went to bed. I was just absolutely beat. It was a very, very hot Sunday. Um, as far as things good, the 6 meter digital, just like Gary said, the 73 contacts there, that's wonderful for digital. I know we did some digital last year, and I don't remember the exact contacts right off the top of my head there, but it is showing if conditions are poor, digital definitely comes in there and steps in. Maybe that's something in the future that was kind of brought up about of maybe when If the phone, bands aren't going the best there, maybe, having the phone station swap over to digital would be a fill-in kind of thing there. I know for me personally, I know I was down on my QSOs on 40 meters, but on Sunday morning, my voice was really harsh. And even when I show up to work on Monday, everyone said, "You sick? Or are you okay?" And I said, "I don't know. I just something went on with my voice. I don't know if I was trying to yell and drive the mic too hard on Saturday evening into the night, and that just kind of did me in there. It wasn't good. Another thing on the used improvements is operators. We always could use more operators. That's the mantra we say every year. Even if we had people that would say, "Hey, I only want to operate during daylight hours from this time to this time," then we could still plan it otherwise. I mean, if someone said, "I want to come 40 meters, but I want to be out of there by 10 o'clock at night," if I knew there was the coverage, I would probably sleep all afternoon on Saturday just to get up to operate on and save my voice and everything for the middle of the night there on Saturday and a Sunday. Same thing with CW. I know Gary was doing some heavy lifting and he had help this year, but that's really a hard slug. So I know we have plenty capable operators in the club. It'd really be nice for you to come out, and even if it's just kind of, you only want to operate a little bit, maybe an hour, or maybe 2 hours or whatever. We did have Stan and Nancy come out, and we did have someone else that I'm drawing a blank that came out on 40, and it gave me the break. It let me step away, but um, the more operators, the merrier. One thing that got brought up here was for 6 meters, we stood up one of the yellow towers. Normally, we've been standing up a single section of the yellow towers, and we did a two section. And that was brought up that was probably a little unsafe because we're all getting a little bit older. We all, don't have the same strength and power, everything we had previously. We did get it up and we did get it down, but maybe for next year, we'll just go back to the single section. Or what was brought up was suggesting maybe putting the 6 meter stuff on top of either the 40-meter tower or the 20-meter phone tower and working it like that. I'm fine with the 40-meter tower there just because my antenna, no matter how much I rotate it, it never helped much with the signal wise there because it's 40, and so it's basically a rotatable dipole. So that's something to go from there. Someone thought it was better that we had the 40-meter trailer being more visible on this side. I don't know if we saw in the photos there that we had Tom bring the camper on the other side of the trees, and that made it more visible. As people walked in, they would look towards us. Some people would walk right to us. We had a lot more people peeking in there than we've had on previous years. Anything else kind of going on? We talked about the dinner alternative. It didn't exactly go well. We didn't get our full order. Using John's there was been okay for years, but maybe for next year we'll come up with some other kind of option there for going on. If even so, this was brought up here. I know when I wasn't operating, I was trying to glad hand with all the visitors we had. I mean, we had a church group come out, and we did a lot of explanation about radios to them, and they really thoroughly enjoyed it. They're doing emergency response kind of stuff and are looking to put a communications component into it, but we tried to spend as much time as we could talking to them. If someone in the club members here, if they wanted to come out and be more of greeters than actually operators, come back for the social aspect that I remember it used to be, 10 years ago, where everyone was kind of there talking. If you could do that to the random people that come through our field day, that would help the club and the sport tremendously. There were lots of people that had lots of questions, and how much you have to explain something to a non-radio person of how everything kind of works. And if we could allow the operators to work on the operating while someone else does the explaining from the club, that would help us tremendously as well. As far as anything else here, sorry, I'm trying to look at two screens here at once. The POTA or POTA, GOTA. The GOTA, yeah, we were a little short on operators. Previous years, we've always had many other people. We didn't have any youth come through. If any of you club members, I shouldn't say children, I'm going to say grandchildren. If you have grandchildren that are in the area, definitely you should bring them out and have them come get on the radio a little bit. I used to be able to get my nieces and nephews, but they're all teenagers now and they don't want to come out to do nothing. They're doing their own thing, and I wasn't able to put my hooks into them for a radio bug, and that's kind of is what it is. But if we can get more of the grandchildren, everyone else to show up, that's the way to go. I was reached out by a Cub Scout group about joining us for field day next year out of the Germantown area here. I will make the contact with them and talk to them. I didn't know if they really wanted to come out to Cedarburg, but if they do, well then, we'll do that and we'll educate them and get them on there. Then my concern is they may be a little bit young for the radio, but it'd definitely be good for the educational point. And given the exchange is a pretty easy exchange, we could probably get these kids on the air and get them to make a couple contacts from that standpoint. Um, I'm looking down here. Nothing. Help set up, help tear down, more operators. Um, that's kind of about what I got. So I'll open it up. Is there anyone else, either in the room or online here, that would like to add in more about your thoughts of field day, good, bad, or things we need to improve on that?
Jim, K9QLP.
Hey, Jim.
I relieved Kenny, and initially 20 phone was very crowded, like it usually is starting at 1 o'clock. But one of the things in the past I always did was park and bark. I'd find a clear channel and do it. But it had its drawbacks because people would come in and somebody would lead them and they'd be explaining what was going on. And I don't know if it's my age or what, but I'd start losing track of things because I'd be hearing things on the other side of the headphones that I shouldn't hear. Well, I noticed Ken was looking at the waterfall. I did the same thing. And when people would come in, we would just hunt for contacts. But when people came in, I put the headphones down, we talked to them, explained to them what was going on, and then we'd put them back on and show them how the contacts were made. Granted, we didn't make a whole heck of a lot of contacts, but I think, you brought up a good point that if we had someone leading people around so that the operator could kind of keep operating so you don't lose your frequency, which is what used to happen, I think it would help a whole lot. So I think the way Ken and I started it, it at least gave people an idea of what was going on. So that's my comment. Ken, you got anything?
Yeah, he was Jim was correct in the fact that it was hard to hold the frequency initially. When I came back on after Jim operated for a couple hours, I believe, I found that 20 had thinned out a little bit and I was able to hold the frequency. I do have a pet peeve that I don't think too many of us in the club here did this, but a lot of people will call CQ, or you'll hear operators calling CQ and having a response and giving the call of the station calling them, and then they'll go QRZ. And I'm screaming at the radio, what is your call? Hint, if you're on phone, drop your call all the time. Constantly drop W9CQO. So many operators, they'll go for 2 minutes and you'll never know what their call is. What is this all about? I did find, though, that after probably about the third hour or fourth hour in the day, 20 had thinned out a little bit, and I was able to call CQ, and my method is to CQ a lot. Short CQs, but every 10 seconds. And that way, somebody starts moving in on you, all they hear is your chatter, and they, I'm going to slide away from this guy. And although it was a 100-watt radio, with those beams, a lot of the stations you're working are running 100 watts in a vertical, and you will command your spot for the most part. especially when I got on Sunday morning, I was able to roll out another 450 Qs in less than 4 hours. So it can be done. And his thought about having somebody else there to field some of the questions if somebody is sticking their nose into the station is a very good one. The only other thing, changing the subject a little bit, is yes, we actually needed a little more of a crew on Sunday afternoon because of the heat and the fact that we had plenty of people to pull the towers down, but several people had to leave at that point in time. And Gary UUR and Mike York have a system to pack up, but there was a lot of things that somebody could come over. Well, can I roll up this wire, or can I do this or do that? I did a little of that, but because of my joint problems, I couldn't do much. But at any rate, if we had a few more people to help, and Rudy just was great to do that and help out. I think you helped out Gary XT, and then you helped out Gary UUR, so that was great. So we need to find a way to wrap up our packing on Sunday, especially some of the stuff that Mike has to put away because he's managing a lot of food preparation items. He's managing all the power items and a lot of odds and ends and the GOTA stuff. And he likes to do things a certain way. So he's doing a lot of it himself, but we've got to find a way to help him out and smooth that out, because that turned out to be the end of the afternoon. You were right. We left about 5 o'clock. And I know in years past, we've been able to operate 3A or 4A, and we were out the door at 4 p.m. So we had a few more people helping, and the weather wasn't quite so hot. And that's what I have for now. One last thing is we probably should work up a list and see if we can get the board to authorize for some more stuff. We should get some more field day filters because those ice filters are dying rapidly. Build a shopping list and see if we can get it okayed for the future. And I'm done.
Yes, Gary W9XT. I have 2 comments. One of the things I was a little bit disappointed in, and Nate mentioned, is lack of youth contacts and stuff. And I was looking at the logs for the GOTA station. I think most of the contacts were actually made by club members as opposed to the public. And that's okay if they're not active operators, but we really want to get the public. I think one of the problems is we don't really have a good message to bring the people in. We have a sign that says public welcome, but if you're just there to walk your dog or your kids or whatever, what's in it for me? And a lot of people don't want to come up and look at the brochures, and they want to stay a safe distance away until they know what's going on. I think we need, seriously, I think we need a banner that explains to them, operator rated. I'm not sure what the exact wording is. We certainly work on it, but something to encourage them, operate our radios or contact other, sites around the country or something. So, give them a little bit of a hook that they can see from a distance. The second thing Nate also touched upon, I was doing CW. I did the graveyard shift, and I object to that picture of me. If you've been up all night operating, you'd be sleeping too, Bill. And to our editor, if that shows up in the newsletter, I've stopped writing my column. So, word to the wise. But anyway, I'm one of the things that was very good. It was 20 was open very, very late, which is important if we're going to do well in field. I was a group with the KMRA that we won it 4 times in the 80s and 90s, and it always when we had 20 meters stayed open late. But then when it started closing down, I went to 40, and 40 was very noisy, and I had trouble making contacts, and 80 was just about impossible because of the QRN. And I got thinking about that, and Nate mentioned FT8, and I was thinking at that time of the night, I don't think it would be a bad idea if those stations were equipped to go to FT8 because, even at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you probably work most of the stations that are on there. New ones pop up rarely. So go into FT8 at that time, especially if the noise is too high to make phone contacts, would help us a lot. But I really don't want that to be the plan to operate, except for maybe, after midnight to 4 o'clock or so. Once 4 o'clock comes around, unless it's really close thunderstorms, the 40 become much more quiet, and then you can make lots of contacts, and that's when you really need to be pounding phone on those bands as early in the morning till about maybe an hour after sunrise. So those are my comments.
Well, probably no one else here on Zoom. I'm glad for all the comments in the room there. Yeah, I'll agree with everything that was pretty much said there. The engagement of the random public. I've thought about that over the years and tried to figure out what would be the hook in doing that. And I know we have Mike as the go-to captain there, and he does a great job doing all that. But it definitely needs to, if we had one person that would be the real cheerleader of the club and doing all that other stuff and doing the walk around, so that way Mike could work on the GOTA and the electrical and everything else he handles. I mean, I give Mike all the applause in the world. He is probably the most vital person at field day for everything to keep running. When you think about all the heavy lifting that has to go on, he is definitely in a class of his own doing all that kind of stuff. But maybe if the board wanted to think about it here, I've seen a lot of POTA guys make like a sandwich board, and the sandwich board they would set out when they do an operation, and on the board there, oh, you can see the kid sticking his head through here. They had an explanation of what they were doing on both sides, two different things, and then it was like, hey, if you have any questions, come over and ask me this and that. Maybe if we had something like that would self-stand on itself, so we're not trying to figure out how to hang a banner or anything else like that. That could be something that could be more inviting. I know the sandwich board kind of thing costs a little bit of money to get that kind of printed out, but since that's a non-expendable kind of item that we would always have in the future, maybe that would be a thing. The lightweight, portable, and that I'd say, do the plastic style sandwich board instead of wood. So that way we don't have to worry about wood rot over the years, but that would be one thing. But Gary, same thing, like you said about the switch over to digital there. If the phone stuff isn't working, yeah, I would probably be perfectly fine with that. Yeah. Like 1 to 2 in the mornings about all you get there on the 40 phone. And then by then things are just dying off, whether they're going to sleep or whatever. And I know I'm dying to take a nap till about 5 in the morning. So, but I think that's all real good stuff there. I appreciate everyone's feedback on it. And as the field day group meets later in this year and into the beginning of next year, we'll do our best to start trying to implement all this stuff. So if there's nothing else, I know Gary's got some video section stuff that he wanted to play about field day paths. So if there's nothing else, I'll hand it back to Gary.
One of America's leading ABC stations. You are watching WISN 12. Covering all of southeastern Wisconsin, leading the way with important local coverage. This is 12 News.
Well, the Ozaki Radio Club is in the midst of celebrating Amateur Radio Week. Gus is hanging out with the Hams in Cedarburg.
That's right. We're located at a home in Cedarburg where they've sort of set up a demonstration of what happens during field day. That's coming up this weekend. You're going to be hearing ham radio operators literally all over the country working with people literally all over the world. Tom Pullman's, this is your operation. We're hidden away in your backyard.
Yes, we are.
Because is this actually where you're going to be setting up for the weekend?
No, we'll be out the Lazy Days campground. And this equipment will be there, and all of these operators will be there. So it'll be quite a weekend.
Now, what's the whole idea behind this weekend? Contact as many people as you can as quickly as possible?
Exactly right. What it is practice for emergency. And we're emergency services group, and this is what we do.
Well, I know during last December, during the tsunami problems in the Indian Ocean and Indonesia, it was primarily ham radio operators that kept communications going, and ultimately, when people counted it all up, saved the lives of thousands and thousands of people. Obviously, this is training, self-training, I guess you could call it. You hope you never have to put to use.
Well, it's really a number of things. First, it's a hobby, first and foremost. And through the hobby, we learn how to communicate and communicate efficiently. And through the ARRL group, we also have formal training programs on emergency communications. So what Field Day is it's really a large social event, but it's a competition for the number of contacts that can be made with emergency power. Over here you'll find we have solar panels operating one of the rigs, and then we'll have generators operating other rigs. So it's truly an emergency simulation.
And when you set this up, when you say emergency simulation, this isn't a matter of here we're all set up to do this. There's a start time. You guys have to go in and set everything up, put up the antennas, throw up the tents, put up the generators, everything.
Exactly right. Everything is portable. So what we basically do is clear out our basements and take it to the field. We have some specialized equipment. For example, this one antenna here is a portable vertical. Now, normally that'd be installed as a permanent installation, but it's an all-band, and you can see we can just pull it out of the ground, transport it, and take it right to the site. We have other installations. One that was built by one of our members here, it's a portable trailer, and it has a crank-up tower. And on the crank-up tower is a beam antenna that operates 5 different bands.
Now, when you try to contact all these places, you're going to try to get as many countries, as many locations, as many stations as possible. I want to talk to you about that and that part of the competition and how important it is. We'll do that when we come back here a little bit later. We're in the town of Cedarburg right now. All of these events happen this coming weekend, and they're not just located at Lazy Days. They'll be all over the place. So we'll have more about the Ozaukee Radio Club, the other radio clubs, and Amateur Radio Week when we come back a little bit later on this morning. Stay with us. More news and sports and weather coming up, though, right after this. Stick around.
And later, Gus is hamming it up.
Hamming it up with the Ozaukee Radio Club. There's a big field day coming up this weekend. They've got an invitation for you to come out and try amateur radio, either with the key, the microphone, maybe even a computer. All the details coming up a little bit later this hour. Stay with us.
Right now, it is time to turn things over to Gus Ganorski talking about ham radios this morning.
That's right. We're with the Ozaukee Radio Club. We're located in the backyard of a home in Cedarburg, generously endowed with trees, which means we're going to have some shade here this afternoon. That shade is not always helpful, though, especially when some of the equipment is solar powered. That's because this is Amateur Radio Week. John Gilmore's with us. This Amateur Radio Week and the big field day coming up, the object is to demonstrate and try your skill at communicating with amateur radio stations everywhere. And that's because it all involves emergency communications. So there's a group called ARES. Tell us what that is.
ARES is the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. It's a branch of the ARRL, Amateur Radio Relay League. And it's basically hams that are dedicated to devoting themselves to emergency operations throughout the country, whether it's wildfires or hurricanes or tornadoes in Wisconsin, such as Siren and Ladysmith. Even public service, such as the bicycle rides that take place throughout Wisconsin. We also provide help to hospitals for communications when there's communications problems for that. We are trained to do all kinds of emergency communications, hazmat, whatever.
You guys interface with the sheriff's departments, with State Patrol, with other organizations, with emergency government organizations too, and I guess kind of the auxiliary? You're the helpers?
Well, yes. For example, emergency management in Ozaukee County, we are attached to them for operations whenever they have a problem that requires communications. For example, to shadow key figures that provide communications for them back to the sheriff or whoever.
You do a lot of work, I know that. This weekend, though, is a special event. It's a field day. You guys are going to be out at the Lazy Days campgrounds. That's in the West Bend area. The object of that on 2 days is to set up quickly with emergency power and contact as many stations as possible. I don't want people to get the idea that this is a good old boys club, though, because I'm going to duck behind me right here and talk to a lady who is working over here. Look at this, in pink no less. This is Naomi Potash. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
Your hat gives away your call sign.
Yes, KC9GSS.
Are there a lot of women still involved in ham radio? I shouldn't say still, but involved in it more and more?
Yeah, more and more. There are some. There's women that are getting interested, and we're hoping more will be involved.
You don't have to be. You don't have to do a whole lot of Morse code to become an amateur radio operator.
No, just very limitedly, and there's a very small test, only 35 questions on the test. It's real easy, and the Ozaukee Radio Club can help you learn all these questions and learn how to be a ham radio operator. It's a real fun hobby.
Now, you're going to be out there in field day, so did you, of course, in your logbook, keep track of how many distance stations? What's the longest distance you've ever put together?
I've just started, so the farthest I've gone is across the lake.
Well, we're going to get you working a lot farther than just across Lake Michigan. All of this, of course, happening this weekend. Various groups all over the place. A lot of them here in Ozaukee County, though. This seems to be the hotbed for amateur radio communications. We hope you get a chance to get out this weekend, see what some of these guys are doing, peek over their shoulder, maybe get some information about amateur radio. We're going to leave Cedarburg now, though, and head back to Brown Deer. Kim is standing by. Kim?
Amateur radio operators are testing their skills this weekend in a competition designed to help in case of a disaster.
12 News reporter DeMarco Morgan traveled to West Bend to take us inside the world of communication.
Louisiana. They call it the world at your fingertips. Amateur radio, or ham radio as it's affectionately known. But whatever you decide to call it, members of the Ozaukee Radio Club say it's communication at its best.
Well, thank you so much, and good luck in the contest.
These hams are joining thousands across the country, working their radios from emergency backup generators in a steep competition.
It's a contest, basically, to see how many stations you can contact in a 24-hour period.
Stanley Kaplan says so far one ham has reached 500 stations. The winning prize, bragging rights. But it's about more than just a contest. Now, the job of the amateur radio operators is, of course, to provide communications not only throughout the country, but the entire world, especially during natural disasters.
When there's a tornado, when there's a flood, or any natural or man-made disaster, hams can be there within minutes to hours.
Hams are in place when communication devices like two-ways and cell phones go out.
It's always the hams that are first there and talking to the outside world, explaining what's going on, what the needs are, and so on.
The Ozaukee Club has been together for the past 25 years and have stepped in to help in tornadoes and other storms throughout the state and major disasters in the country. They hope to continue doing so in the future. In West Bend, DeMarco Morgan, WISN 12 News.
So how old were those video clips? Because that had to have been a long time ago.
I noticed some of the people were younger in there.
I mean, I think that's cool, but like
they were all,
you know, the
2005.
That's 2005. Okay, so that's 20 years ago.